Arvid, the floor is yours.
Könnte ich einmal die Note View haben, die Speaker Notes? Danke.
Could I have the note view, please, speaker notes? Right, I'll tell you something about modularization and containerization of identity and access management services of Univention corporate servers, the classical UCS appliance. Well, I'm not telling you any news here. It's a Debian-based operating system. That's our point of departure. And based on this, the App Center offers a simple opportunity for domain-wide deployment of applications. But the core value of UCS always lies with identity access management and the related APIs. Operation in data centers demands containerization. Cloud providers using AWS, Azure, or Amazon Google have transferred to containerized infrastructures because they're easier to roll out. Modular stack must be capable of being run on Kubernetes. Let me speak about the guidelines that inform our development right now. First of all, the services must be capable of being implemented in modern data center environments and cloud services. So they need to be independent of the platform. They also have to be scalable and highly available. Each module shall be deployed in several instances. We pursue an IPA-first approach in this context. The user interfaces access exactly those APIs. We expect this to reduce dependencies in development and therefore more flexibility in development. In this context, we will keep the modules deployable on Linux with the proviso that, of course, there must be compatibility. UCS is designed for fast utilization, whereas Kubernetes is targeted more at data centers. So a new target platform will be Kubernetes as a container as a service platform. Examples of this are, for instance, the sovereign cloud stack and also data centers of partner companies as we do it with Dataport in the Phoenix project. The list of the Univention management stacks will continue to be operable on classic Linux servers, be it the UCS appliance or other Linux distributions. Let me briefly speak about the sovereign cloud stack. Some cloud service providers use OpenStack in order to make infrastructure services available. We speak of IaaS in this context, as well as Kubernetes in order to realize CaaS, container as a service. The objective of sovereign cloud stack is to be open source, reference implementation. The Univention management stack shall be deployable on the basis of the Kubernetes sovereign cloud stack. Right now, OpenLDAP is used as a default for identity access management, and Cloak is the main layer for federation between IDPs. So that's for different cloud stack environments. The service-oriented IAM architecture that we're working on right now is composed of the following containerized components. From the perspective of the user, there's first of all the UCS portal, then the Univention Management Console, UMC, the REST API for the Univention Directory Manager, single sign-on with an option of federation, a key cloak in concrete terms, and open LDAP as an identity store. And attached to that, a provisioning system based on a queuing system and provisioning workers. The first 5 points are already realized in the Phoenix project, so there are SSO pipelines and tests to run against this. Then the 6th part, we're still working on it. You can see an architectural overview now, which might be a bit too complex to capture it at a glance. I'll break it down for you. In the upper section, we can see the user interfaces, such as the UMC modules, and the portal and the single sign-on login, where you enter your password if, for instance, you log in via SSO on the portal. In the center, you can see backend services. To the left, you can see external services. And at the base, or at the bottom of the image, you can see the Univention appliance stack or Kubernetes. Let me break it down to the crucial or key part for this presentation, the user interfaces, user interface components here, and you can see the core part is the UDM REST API, which is the core piece as the API first component. I left the old architectural sketch out in order not to bore you. OpenLDAP used to be the more core component, and UDM REST API was added subsequently. The Univention Directory Manager simplifies identity access management. For a containerized architecture, we have the Python API UDM, and we lifted it to the level of a HTTP-based service. Univention Management Console uses the REST API, and that access can be horizontally scaled by load balancing. I would like to focus a bit on the login flow to be a bit more technical. This is a technical track after all. So this pairs back the graph to the 4 components: portal, single sign-on, REST API, and open LDAP. The word keycloak has been mentioned a number of times already now. What is this all about? Keycloak is a solution that offers support for OpenID Connect and for SAML. It also allows for federation options to external identity providers. In addition, Keycloak offers the option of a so-called user federation, where Keycloak is connected to LDAP. Keycloak itself then only maintains shadow accounts with additional data. Keycloak additionally offers a basic two-factor authorization. Keycloak has been designed for containerized operation by offering HTTP interfaces for configuration of APIs. We now use Keycloak 18, i.e. the Keycloak X architecture, with a login screen in UCS theming. Well, Keycloak offers relatively simple options of adjusting the theming. Keycloak, in this architectural plan, becomes a first-class component of the identity access management, enhancing Open LDAP that way. Let me go to an example, give you an example, to show what is possible with Keycloak. Let's assume a case where in a customer environment there is already a Microsoft Active Directory with Federation services, AFDS here, shown in a typical color. And this is used as the lead registry. UCS, in this scenario, offers the possibility of attaching additional services. Let's take a user who signs on to the UCS portal for the first time. For single sign-on, his browser is forwarded to the Keycloak, to the single sign-on entry point, be it SAML or Open LDAP. Connect currently will be SAML, and Keycloak allows for federation to the MS ADFS. So the user's browser is forwarded to the Active Directory Federation services where he enters his password. So UCS never sees those credentials. If after successful login on ADFS, the browser returns to the Keycloak via the redirect, and a call against the REST API is implemented as a first broker, which will create a user account under Open LDAP, which is embedded into the system so that future logins will access the LDAP data there, so that further attributes which are not held in the Active Directory Federation service can be added, be it role allocations, group memberships, whatever. Second factor authentication can also be another application here. The Keycloak app, as Ingo Stoiber said earlier, is in the Test App Center today. We are writing integration tests now in order to ensure that integration, login via the portal or the UMC will work in the long term. Not only works for me on a developer's notebook, Keycloak thus offers an alternative to the simple XAML PHP that we have today, or Copano Connect as an optional component. In a first step, there will be a standalone configuration in order to give an impression of what can be done with it. That's a point of departure for us as developers to be able to go beyond this. Well, as I said, theming has been integrated already. We will have ad hoc federation in the next couple of weeks. It's all been implemented, but it needs to be integrated into the app as well. And in the next step, we will use Keycloak for high availability with the objective of having a viable alternative for simple SAML PHP. This is where an example of where we need this for our operations, but where we also can integrate them as a containerized service in the appliance. The goal is for Keycloak to be the standard IDP for UCS appliance and for operations in the data center. This plan, if you call back to mind the overview, it looks like a marathon, but it certainly will be more than just a few agile sprints. There'll be a number of challenges, of which I'll only give you a few here. For instance, the dynamic extendability of LDAP schema and ACL fragments. That's a strong aspect of our LDAP implementation. And to do this at container level across various containers on a Kubernetes managed platform will immediately take you to philosophical, quasi-philosophical questions such as cattle with pet, namely the question of how can I maintain this scheme extension. How can they be taken to the pods to stay within the Kubernetes lingo? So we can see that we move from a file-based approach to a live configuration via the cn-ecos config interface. Nevertheless, we have to have a persistence of this extension in case servers are reprovisioned, or if I want to put other pods next to it. So that means it'll be a challenge to achieve a robust and efficient scaling model for LDAP. There'll be a lot of trial and error and testing before we reach a mature status. What would be nice, of course, would be if we could not only horizontally scale the LDAP recals, but if we could go from read-only to an implementation where you would have the possibility of have a failover from one writable LDAP to the other. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. The UDEM REST API. Sorry, the way I worded it here. It should be the sole API interface, which is the only authorized writer for the open LDAP, the only identity store, and so the Univention management system will not become redundant. We will continue to have to allocate user ideas and names. Well, I hope I was able to give you an overview here of what keeps us busy as developers, what fascinates us, and I would like to thank you for your attention.